Manini, he's got a chance. Oh, well done, Shaun Goater.
What a dreadful back pass. Darren Huckabee says thank you very much.
A first half hat-trick for Erling Haaland, his second hat-trick in successive Premier League home matches for the Blues. Cancelo scored a rasper in the early minutes of the second half, and then two for Julian Alvarez, his first 2 goals in the Premier League. Alvarez scoops it on, and it's Bernardo Silva to score! Oh, how did that happen? City have 4 against 3. Can they find the right pass? Haaland, will he score? You bet he will!
Here's Doku again on that left-hand side. And he finds the net with the strike. Jeremy Doku puts City back on terms. It takes less than a minute. And in towards Haaland. And into the net. As easy as that for Erling Haaland. Alvarez, Gundogan, Haaland, opportunity for Foden, Haaland will tap it in, 2-0 to City. Over, headed to the back post, Stones puts it in, and Haaland puts it across the line. It's his hat-trick. Rolling that to Cancelo, takes one touch to control, strikes that right-footed, and scores for City. Maris. Off the ball, here's Alvarez. Alvarez scores! It's with Mahrez. Mahrez goes for goal. Come back out to Alvarez, into the net! It's his second! It's 6-0 to Manchester City.
A very good afternoon to all Manchester City fans around the world. Welcome along to Matchday Live. My name is Cel Spellman, and it is so great to be with you, bringing you our 1-hour build-up ahead of our Premier League fixture as we welcome Steve Cooper's Nottingham Forest to the Etihad Stadium. It was goals galore in this fixture last season. 6-0 it finished for City, so I'm sure City fans will be hoping for more of that, but a slightly better and slightly different Nottingham Forest team away. Here to get into all that action, I'm so delighted to say joining me in the studio is none other than legend Paul Dickov, and making their Matchday Live debuts is Stuart Pearce and Rob Earnshaw. Gents, it's an absolute privilege to have you in the studio. Rob, what have you made of a Nottingham Forest start to this season so far?
Pretty good. I think it's been a better start of the season than last year. Yeah. I think they feel a little bit more comfortable. You can see the energy is a little bit different. Got a couple of wins as well, which is big. And I think they're in a good position. I think they are a much better team than they were 1 year ago.
I mean, Stuart, allegiances on both sides, so always a funny kind of moment, I guess, for you. But we, of course, know you from playing on the pitch and also managing off the pitch. Is it nice to be back at the Etihad?
It always is. Whenever you come back here and see the entity that is Manchester City and how it's evolved and the standard of football. I mean, I normally come up here and cover games for the radio, and you just wowed at the end of last season. The standard of football that Pep's got his team playing is incredible.
I guess, though, like Rob said, I mean, Steve Cooper, now they've had that season in the Premier League. It's a different proposition to the Nottingham Forest we faced last season, isn't it?
100%. I think Steve Cooper went into the Premier League thinking it would play the same way as he did in the Championship. Credit to him, he found out very quickly that he couldn't do that, changed the style of play, more counter-attack, and obviously they brought a lot of players in that's developed their style of play, and I think they're a decent counter-attack team. When you look at who they've played, they're 8th in the league. They've been away to Chelsea and won. They've been away at Manchester United and to Arsenal. It's a tough start of the season, and they're still in the top half of the division.
Absolutely.
And just on that, how well they did, I think, is important. How well they did at Manchester United, being 2-0 up. Yeah. How well they did against Arsenal as well. And now they come, obviously, here, as well as obviously going to Chelsea and winning there.
1-0.
So, really good position that they're in.
Big result. Paul, I want to hear all about your tour. I know you've been over with the trophies in Asia, but before that, let's get team news. FG and Shaun Goater at pitch side. Let's take a look at our starting 11. FG, what have you got for us?
And welcome to Pitchside on this glorious Saturday afternoon. We don't have a 3 o'clock kickoff very often anymore, do we? But I have got the starting 11 for you, and it is as follows. In goal is the ever-present Ederson. Our captain today is Kyle Walker. Completing the back four is Ruben Diaz, Manuel Akanji and Josko Vardiol. In midfield is Rodri, Nunes and Phil Foden. Julian Alvarez, Doku and Erling Haaland make up your starting 11. The substitutes for Manchester City, we have Ortega and Carson, Calvin Phillips, Nathan Ake, a return for Jack Grealish, great to see, Sergio Gomez, Oscar Bob and Rico Lewis. And joining me pitchside is none other than Manchester City legend Shaun Goater. We've got the same hoodie on today.
Yes, I thought we was going to front two up top, but we'll stick with the three up front. We'll stick with that.
Yeah, City fans don't want to see me up top. Let's talk about that starting 11 then. Any surprises? It seems to be very attacking, doesn't it?
Well, listen, we've got quality players in the team. Again, I'm looking forward to Doku. He's coming, given that old-fashioned style of winger and how he's dynamic. He goes across players. And for Haaland, I know this also excites him because he's now got a winger that, again, old-fashioned, will just go across players, push across the 6-yard line, and he'll be in and around that area. Nunes, looking forward to seeing a bit of him. But we've got a strong team, and I'm really looking forward to this one today.
Interestingly enough, there is an element of surprise in that starting 11 because I want to know where you think Alvarez is going to play, where you think Foden's going to play, because the graphic, we predicted that Foden was in that midfield. Are we wrong, do you think?
This is what's so good, The players can play in so many different positions, but I think Foden will be wide. I think Alvarez will be in that 8th position. And what's so great about Alvarez, he plays in the 8th position, but can play 9, but also has the quality of a 10 in terms of being able to score when chances come. So I think he'll play in that 8th position just behind, supporting Haaland up top. But every time I've had a go at it, I've been wrong because Pep is he sees things that we all don't see in terms of what players give and how they support and how they can get into the box. So, but I think Foden may just be wide on the left side.
Of course, we never know. Let's talk about Phil Foden real quick. Amazingly, there are some people who are not 100% convinced by Phil Foden. I think every Manchester City fan knows how good Phil is. He can play in numerous positions, like you said. His qualities are second to none, aren't they, Shaun?
Well, listen, if you're having any doubts about Foden, have a look at yourself because he is awesome. He is absolutely awesome. Really excited to see him playing again today. He's great because if he is wide, his ability to drive at teams, to come inside and link up, he gives us energy. He gives us energy not only in possession but out of possession, and for me he's a phenomenal player. I'd love to see him in the team. I want to see him in the team. I prefer him slightly central because I think he's really dynamic when he drives the team, but he also offers real quality in the wide position as well.
And he also, of course, has the work rate as well. Let's talk about Nunes, new signing. We saw a very, very good performance from him midweek. How did you rate his performance?
Yeah, well, listen, again, technically another quality player that comes in. Surprising though, when I say surprising, he's come in, he's taller than I actually thought. I think he's around 6 foot. This shows you that when we recruit players, it's looking at other elements of the game. Rodri is a tall player, he's also a tall player. I think this is technically really good, intelligent player, but I think he offers this ability to drive forward. And what comes to mind is a little bit like what Yaya used to do: receive balls and drive through midfield and just be upon the offense, the opposition's defense, and then making great decisions. So this is what he brings to our team, and I'm really looking forward to him there.
We have to move on to the defence real quick. I don't think we give this man enough credit because we got him for an absolute bargain. Manuel Akanji has just wowed us all since he's got here, hasn't he? He can play anywhere across the back four. We see him stepping into midfield. How would you like to face against him, Shaun?
I'm in the right place on the side. I would not want to be facing him. He is strong, he's intelligent, he reads the game, his game understanding. When he needs to be physical, when you're talking about balls in the box, he's brilliant in both boxes. You're talking about a top world-class defender, and this is what comes to mind with all our defenders. But again, I really like him because he's come in, he's bedded himself in no time. He's coming in, it's felt like he's been here for seasons. And I remember thinking, he's only been here for a few months and he's just as though he's been here for years. So, absolute quality.
Do you think he's going to play in the centre today, or do you think he's going to play at fullback?
Well, I think he'll be on the right-hand side. I think he'll do an excellent job as well.
Well, we've also got another striker in the studio, Rob Earnshaw. We want to know how you'd get on against this City back four. Back to you and Cel and the guys in the studio.
Thanks, FG. Thanks, Sean. We'll be hearing from them later on the show. I mean, we should probably start with that question. We're going to focus on the midfield. But how would you get on against City's back four, do you think, Rob?
Do you know what? I would actually love it because I think when you're a striker, you want to score goals, but you want to score goals against good players, and you want to outsmart good players. And this back four have got everything. They've got strength, and they're great in the air, and they read the game. But you would have to. The only way I see it, if I was playing against these, is outsmart them.
Yeah.
Because the one thing I would love to play against these and do is movement, because movement gets you goals.
Yes.
It's almost like you catch me.
Yes.
And that's the position that you have to put these guys in. Otherwise, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
I know Kyle Walker is super lightning quick, but there's spaces there that you can find in the box that you can score goals against.
And it would make it so rewarding to get them goals as well if you did. But let's focus. We're going to begin with the midfield. And I want to begin with the player who he got his full start in the middle of the week in the Champions League. Obviously, he was assigned at the back end of the transfer window. Nunes keeps his position. He's starting today alongside Rodri and I'm assuming maybe Alvarez. What have you made of kind of that first game? And he just seems to have kind of settled right in very quickly.
I think that's the big thing, Cel. You know, historically people say it takes players a little bit of time to settle into how Pep plays and how the team plays and everything else. But Matheus Nunes the other night, they're just slotted in and looks as if he's been here a long time, as the other players have as well. You know, the new signings, Doku has been the same. Kovacic, the first few games of the season, looks as if he's been here a long time. And it's interesting with players like Nunes as well, because they're more ball carriers. You know, and I think the signings this season, you know, Pep's always evolving what he does. You know, a few seasons ago it was the false nine, then other teams were doing a false nine. Last season it was John Stones going into midfield or the inverted fullbacks coming in. It looks as if he's changed it a bit again by the signings that we've got, you know, and rather than playing between the lines and everything else, the players that we've brought in, they seem more ball carriers to try and break the lines and get past people and then go and doing it from there.
That's a good point, because I watch City every week. And I've watched Guardiola since he was a player in Barcelona and being a manager. But I think this year, I think he identified that the only one real ball carrier he's had the last couple of years is De Bruyne. Yeah. De Bruyne does everything, but he carries the ball. He's the one that he makes the difference over 50, 60 yards. I think Nunes can do that now. Yeah. Doku can do that now. You can give him the ball and say, go on. Yeah. It doesn't matter if there's two against you. And I think that it's a small little shift, but what the impact is going to be huge, I think.
That's an obvious question. What benefits does it give to the team to have ball carriers? You know, what will that give to City maybe that they haven't had so much unless De Bruyne's?
I think it's just that it's evolving the team as well. You know, we know especially at the Etihad, and Forest will do the same. Everybody's going to be behind the ball. You know, so there's not going to be a lot of space. So sometimes you need these players to draw these players out. You know, and drive at them, and then once they beat them, they're out of shape a little bit. And we've seen that, especially Kovacic was excellent the first couple of games of the season in doing that. You know, the amount of space he created for other players just by driving at other midfielders, driving at defenders, dragging them out of position, and then the spaces are there for them to see. And I think Nunes has got that ability as well.
I think the commodity of having a ball carrier in your team, you know they can look after the ball. Yeah. I mean, everyone in the City ranks can look after the ball, and I include the goalkeeper in that statement as well. But to actually drive your team 40, 50 metres up the pitch and go past people, all of a sudden you go past someone behind that has got to make a decision to come out.
Yes.
As Ernie mentioned and Dickie mentioned. And once they do, you start knocking the team over.
Another player I think that's so fundamental then to allowing other players to flourish, and is almost the linchpin of the team really, is Rodri, Stuart. And I just wondered, how have you seen his game evolve? Because he's popped up now, I think, you know, we obviously did a big goal last season, but he seems to have added goals to his game this season. And yeah, Josh, I'd be interested to know what have you made of him so far?
Yeah, not just goals, almost big goals at brilliant times in the game where your team needed a goal. Rodri steps up where you're looking, is it going to be Foden? Is it going to be Haaland? It's not. It's Rodri comes up and gets a goal that lifts the team. But what he does, Listen, I've been working recently at West Ham, and the worth of Declan Rice sat in front, shielding and knitting everything together in that central area. This fella's probably arguably the best in the world at doing that. Rodri. Incredible player.
I was going to say that actually. I regard him as now the best midfielder in the Premier League, that holding midfielder.
Yeah.
Because he just does everything. And now he's added goals. You just think, okay, what can he not do? But he's the best holding midfielder in the Premier League right now.
I was just going to make a point here. Dickie's just been out the Far East and took the trophies out there. I think, watching from afar, City have got their hands on these trophies this season just gone because of what they're doing defensively.
Yeah.
That has been the difference between the seasons before, when they haven't got their hands on the Champions League.
I couldn't agree more.
And who's integral to that in front of the back four? Rodri.
It's funny, isn't it, Paul? Because when we watched the team evolve over the years, really, I think of Gareth, Barry, and De Jong. And I thought, would I ever see a De Jong or a bruiser like that? Then Yaya Toure comes in. Then we see Fernandinho, and I remember thinking, it can't get better. I said to my dad last week, he seems to have the ingredients of all of them kind of amalgamated into one, and then taking it to a new level. I mean, you watch him, you can't even get the ball off him these days, Paul.
I remember us talking at the end of last season when Fernandinho retired, and we're like, how are we going to replace him? Rodri had been in and out and they'd swapped it around, and you're thinking Fernandinho, for me, at that point, was our most important player in what we were doing. And Rodri's come in and he's just kicked right on to an unbelievably different level as well. And just on him scoring goals a little bit, I'm looking at, I know I've spoken about Kovacic and now Nunez, they can both play that 6 role. So if Rodri wants to go forward a little bit more, they've got somebody that's sitting in for them, so it's allowing them to go further forward, create chances and getting goals as well. And that rotation that they've got in the middle, with Alvarez as well. We're saying Alvarez is an out-and-out goal scorer, he's playing as a 10. He drops back into midfield and helps his team out as well, and works ever so hard, and they all do. But Rodri, for me, the lads have just said it. I think he's the best in that position.
Absolutely. If you want to get involved with this conversation we're having here, maybe you've got a point to make, or maybe you want to put a question to our guests, you can use our WhatsApp number there below, and I'll get to them a little bit later on in the show. But let's keep on pushing through, because now we're going to head back to FG and Shaun, and we're now going to hear what team Manchester City face. This is the side that Steve Cooper has chosen for Nottingham Forest.
Hello and welcome back to Pitside. It is time for the away team news. In goal is former Arsenal goalkeeper Matt Turner, Nuno Tavares, Mangala, Sangare, Awani, Morgan Gibbs-White, Dominguez, Niakate, Serge Aurier, former Spurs and captain today, Willy Bolly, and then we have Aina as well. And back Pitside with me, of course, is Manchester City legend and overall legend Shaun Goater. We've seen the team, seen the starting 11. Let's start with Awani, a player who plays in the same position as you, and a man who has a lot of qualities.
Yes, I'm really impressed with this kid, because I think that he could cause a threat if he gets service. So I think from City's point of view is making sure that he doesn't get that service. He's powerful, he's strong, and it's got a little bit. Oh, my hair's can get all damaged, by the way.
Seems to be raining here.
Got sprinklers.
Yes, yeah, now.
Yeah, but he's a really powerful and clever player as well. So I think his game is about nullifying him in terms of City making sure he doesn't get the space and time. If he's getting balls on his side, he's powerful, and could also, he has a decent finisher. We've got to really watch him.
The weather's not as bad, by the way. It is just the sprinkler that's wetting us. Let's talk about the service behind him then. Morgan Gibbs-White, a man who was part of the England team, which was managed by Steve Cooper in the young one. Played with Phil Foden. Good friends with Phil Foden. He's quick, he's strong, and he's making a real name for himself here, isn't he?
Yeah, what I like is when I see him play, he's got a leadership about him. He's a voice in and around the field. He's the one trying to encouraging the players. He's the one that essentially driving the team forward. I like him because he's a direct player. He gets the ball, he's willing to drive at teams. This is some of his qualities, and clearly he's one that's using the confidence that he's had with the World Cup to inspire his team and try to have good performances. So again, we can't allow him to have time to be driving at our defence, because again, he's caused us some trouble.
This Forest team seemed to express themselves a lot under Steve Cooper, and going back to Morgan Gibbs-White, he's obviously knows Steve Cooper very well because he was part of the England setup with him. He's come to Forest, and it is a case of that. He's playing with freedom, and how important is that for a young player?
It's really good, and I think it's down to the relationship from the manager, because as a player, when you find you're under a manager that believes in you, trusts in you, plays you every week, You know that you're playing, so you're comfortable, and this is where he's getting his confidence from. He knows that he's going to be in that starting 11. He understands what it takes to win something in terms of the World Cup, the under-20s. So he's got the confidence from the manager, and he just wants to go out there and play and enjoy. And I see the leadership in him. He's driving his players, through the game, saying, "Come on, give more." And he's an exciting player. I'm sure the fans for them are really excited when they see him play as well.
He absolutely is excited, and also a man who's also got a lot of leadership, a lot of experience playing in the Premier League is Serge Aurier. City fans might know him from of course, how he was at Spurs.
Yeah.
He had a good stint there. How do you think he's settled in, and the qualities he's got? He's really important for the locker room, isn't he?
Yes, he is. And what's interesting is when he was at a huge club, and he's still at a huge club, at Tottenham, and it seemed like he had the odd mistake in him. And I think he's probably gotten himself to be a little bit more comfortable, again, in relationship with the manager, trusting him, bringing him in, saying, "You're going to be my number one starter, fullback." And so he's wanting to perform this way. Again, he's got a lot of experience in the Premier League. But he's one I think we can get at and expose. But again, he still has quality.
He absolutely does. This Forest side are definitely a good side. They're playing against a very, very attacking City lineup, which you guys would have seen on the start of Matchday Live. Willy Bolly, let's talk about him. Former Wolves player. Really, really good qualities. Very good in the air.
Yeah.
How does he deal with Erling Haaland and the rest?
Yeah, it's really interesting. See, the thing is, if you want to make the perfect centre forward, you're making a Haaland. Only reason is because he's tall, he's also quick. So Bolly, whilst he's tall and it can also match the aggressiveness, I think he's at first 3-4 yards in and around the box. That's something that Haaland offers that not a lot of strikers offer. You normally get that first 3-4 yards of pace from a real short player, but Haaland is so rapid in that first 5 yards. And when you're in the box and a ball's about to be delivered, you only need a yard. So him faking to go one way and then go another is difficult to mark. So for me, getting that yard will be the interesting thing. How Bolly can compete and stop Haaland in that way. Bolly will be an interesting one in both boxes because, again, he's good in the air. But Haaland, I think, will be able to get his joy from the movement that first 2 or 3 yards, and that's where Haaland will probably get his joy.
Will Forest be looking at this game and sort of hoping to get a set piece, hoping to go over the top a couple of times? They've got the pace of a one-way, of course. The game plan is, do you think it's going to be to sit back and then to sort of just get what they can and work on scraps, so to speak?
Well, they're not a bad counter-attacking team. I think they're looking at this as a free hit. I think most teams come and say, we play City free hit. If we can get a draw out of it, wow, we've had a great result. If they manage to be winning the game, can they hold on to it and get a win? But I think they're going to look at this game and say, listen, if we can keep this down to 2-0, 2-1, that'll be perfectly fine for them.
Well, there it is. There's your Forest team news. Thank you very much, Shaun, for your incredible insight. Let's head back to the studio and let's go and speak to a former Forest player, Stuart Pearce. Let's see what he thinks about the lineup.
Let's begin right there then, FG. As you can see in the studio, Matchday Live debut for Stuart Pearce and Earnshaw and Paul Dickov with me as well. Stuart, what was your first thoughts when you saw the Nottingham Forest starting 11?
Well, it left Hudson-Odoi out. One or two of the players I thought that could be very hurtful to Manchester City were on the bench, Elanga and Hudson-Odoi, and they are two players that have got a good turn of speed and counter-attack very well. Iwanya's massive for the team. I've got to say, he's got a physical presence, he's quick. If you saw the goal that they scored at Arsenal, they swept from one end of the pitch to the other with an incredible pace. Yeah. And that has got to be something that City have got to watch out for today. I think Forest, listen, we all talk about how will teams play when they come to play Man City. You're penned back, whether you like it or not, you're penned back and you've got to rely on counter-attacks. They'll rely on that counter-attack, but also as well the link play of Gibbs-White, because we talked about ball carriers with City. He's the ball carrier that's got to offer that link, you know, from being penned back in to when the ball goes out. He's got to retain it and give the back line a bit of a breather and turn Man City round and make them do some defending.
Yeah, it's a big ask, but we were saying at the start of the show, when you look at the games so far this season, you know, they're holding their own, and to be fair, I think have been unlucky maybe not to have a couple more wins, particularly at Old Trafford, 1-0 at Stamford Bridge. That can only stand them in good stead to feel they could probably maybe come here and do something that they weren't maybe able to do last season, Rob.
Well, this is almost like a free hit because I think every team, if you're in that bottom half, is looking at, at Man City and coming here and thinking, well, we're not expected to take anything. So it's a free hit. So you come here, and I think it's so difficult to play against this Man City team. It's so difficult because wherever you look, there's threats.
Yeah.
So how do you cope with those threats is pretty much you pray and hope. That's it. But if Forest are going to do anything this afternoon, it's going to be Awoniyi and Gibbs White. I think those two especially. And it's interesting how Steve Cooper's lined up. I think it's going to be a little bit more defensive. I think it's a little bit more compact and try and hit it, that counter attack with Gibbs White and Awoniyi especially. But it's going to be a very long afternoon for Forest.
FG asked Shaun there, Paul, the Nottingham Forest defence, as all defences, as you said, Stuart, that come here, what will they be doing or having to do to try and keep out the likes of Doku, Haaland and Foden and Alvarez?
I think the biggest thing for them as a team is going to be concentration. For not just, well, they're playing 100 minutes now. I think it's pretty obvious that they're going to sit deep and try and hit the counter attack like the lads have said. But when the other team's got the ball and you're chasing and you get tired and you get more tired towards the end of the game, the first thing that goes is your concentration levels, and that's what Man City do. They grind teams down and they wait for teams getting tired, wait for the spaces to open and do it. But talking about Awoniyi, I think he's probably the most important player for Forest today because City are going to have all the ball. So when they win it back and he's your centre forward, he's your 9, he's got to hold the ball up. Because if he's not holding the ball up, it's just going to keep coming back and coming back. He's got to make sure that he retains the ball and lets the likes of Gibbs White and the other midfielders get up the pitch a little bit to go with him. We all know he can run in behind, we all know he can score goals, but I think holding the ball up is going to be massive for Forest today because they're not going to have a lot of it. So when they get it, it's important that your centre forward especially is the one that keeps holding that ball for you.
Well, when you're a forward, especially in this type of game, you're praying maybe you might get 2 chances.
Yeah.
So what do you do with those two chances? So your concentration level has to be at the level of I've got to take at least 1 and 2. That's the minimum. I can't, because we're going to lose. But that 1 and 2 might change the course of the game.
Yes.
I was at the Red Star Belgrade game, the Champions League game, City here on Tuesday, and they hit them with the counter punch, that counter attack, because it was all City. City missed loads of chances, and all of a sudden, bang, 1-0. And that's how I think Forest have got to be, because you might get maybe 2 chances, you've got to take them away. You've got to take both of them, really. But that counter-attack is going to be super key. So key.
I'm just going to make a point. I think Shaun made a really good point earlier about the movement of the strikers, Haaland and whatever, that first yard. I mean, these two boys are strikers. They know that clever movement, especially when defences get turned round. I think that's almost an Achilles heel of Forest. I think when the play's in front of them a little bit, it's not too bad. When City get to the bylines and pull back, that's where I think there's a little... definitely Achilles heel with the likes of Bolly and the central defenders. That's where they might suffer.
Okay, and we mentioned obviously 2 players that we thought maybe start Elanga and Hudson-Odoi, that beautiful goal to get the equaliser against Burnley. Do you think there's maybe something, Paul, that if Forest are still in the game at 60-65 minutes, suddenly if you're bringing on Elanga with that pace that we've seen in Hudson-Odoi, I know as a City fan you're going, well, that's worrying because you feel they might get a chance or 2. That could be maybe part of the game plan, do you think?
Yeah, it could be 6-0 by then.
Yeah. True, though, I see.
I think it's probably more a defensive thing than anything else. Elanga likes to go forward and the energy they've got. Hudson-Odoi the same, but do they really want to go back and help their fullbacks out a little bit? So Steve's probably thinking, they're going to need everybody from a defensive point of view as much as they can. And as you rightly say, look, if the game is a little bit tighter on 60, 65, 70 minutes, they've got blistering pace to bring off the bench, like we've seen the goal they scored against Arsenal.
Yeah. Stuart, I wanted to ask also, obviously as a manager as well, there was 7 signings on deadline day for Forest, and we know as well coming into the league last season he brought in a lot of players. Just how difficult is it to do what Steve Cooper's having to do with having to, lose players but then bleed in such a big amount of players to be bringing in? How difficult is that?
Well, I think you've only got to look at the last just over a calendar year. The amount of ingoings and outgoings at Forest has been incredible, and I've sat back on occasion. I've got a lot of time for Steve. I think he's done a brilliant job at the club, but I looked and thought, this is a recipe for disaster for any manager and any coach. And I wonder, I do, and say, how many of those has he put his name to, and how many of the owner put his name to? But it works. He juggles the pack. He's got the results. He kept them in the division last year. They've started this season. They look stronger this year than certainly they did last year. The home fans and the home support have been brilliant to Forest, I've got to say, and it's their home form that's probably kept them in the league last year. This year, they've done really well on the road at the start of this season and picked up that valuable victory down at Chelsea. So if they can tinker with their away form, all of a sudden you're looking at a team, instead of facing relegation, they're mid-table.
Yeah, and I guess, Rob, for the fans, but also maybe for other clubs, you see Sheffield United come up and say that actually you can look to Nottingham Forest and go, they were able to come up, make that transition and then hold their own. The fans must be absolutely buzzing, to see the team do what they're doing.
Oh, they are, absolutely. And I've got to say, Steve Cooper's done one of the most amazing jobs in English football, by the way, because here they are, I think they lost 6 out of 7 when he came in, and they were fighting relegation, and all of a sudden that same season he took them to the Premier League. And then last season, with all the incomings and outgoings and the signings, it's so hard in the dressing room, and Stuart will know, it's so hard in the dressing room to have so many bodies, so many different players coming in and out, and there's no rhythm there in the dressing room. You're just learning people's names and learning how they play.
Yes.
And it's so hard. But somehow he's kept them in the Premier League. Now this season, everybody probably thought, they won't win many games at the beginning and they'll be one of the relegation teams. But straight away he's gone, okay, no, we're going to improve. We're going to start off on fire, which for them it is on fire. And they've got a lot of points on the board already, which looks like they'll be in the Premier League again. So he's done an unbelievable job, but it is so hard to have so many players in that dressing room and try and keep them happy. But listen, right now I think Forest are flying. They're doing so well. They're happy, and you can see now there's a little bit more gel there.
Yes.
There's a little bit more rhythm and comfortability in that how they play.
Yeah.
So listen, today is a great game, because as well as you started, what can you do against this City team?
Absolutely, yeah, that's it. And as you say as well, it does seem they've had some tough fixtures, and to have the points on the board already, it does bode well indeed for Nottingham Forest. Stuart Pearce, it's so great to have you in the studio, but also back in the Etihad. And I wanted to begin first of all with your playing time at City. I think I've actually got a picture of, not to make you feel too old, but a very young me.
You're a good man.
But I've got one with Paul as well, but at Carrington. And I remember even when I was young, for you to be coming to City, it was massive. I mean, did you enjoy your time here and fond memories from playing for City?
I was 39 years old. I was about to retire from football. I was at West Ham, and the phone went, and it was Kevin Keegan, and he said to me, I've just signed a contract at Manchester City. I want you to be my first signing. Will you come and join us? And the opportunity, I mean, at the time the team were in the Championship, and to walk through the door with some of the talent there, and to join Kevin Keegan at this club and this project that he wanted to get the team back in the Premier League. And I personally think it was the first building block of what you see now, because the levels of professionalism that Kevin asked for, standards of pitches, all of those type of things, Kevin was responsible for right at the very start. That's my opinion, and as I say, the club have just grown from strength to strength.
When of course you were playing, and we were in that fight obviously to go up, and with the team there, were there any kind of standout moments or games, or do you remember feeling like, okay, actually we're onto something here, there's something building?
Certain things happened. We were really, really fortunate. We had brilliant strikers. I mean, the fella down there on the touchline, it would bounce off his backside, his shin, you name it, the goat, and it goes in the back of the net. He got 36 goals that season.
Yeah.
Huckabee got, I think, 29. But the real catalyst was when a fella called Ali Benarbia walked through the door in September. We had an injury, and Arthur Cox the assistant to Kevin. We had an injury in training one day, and by the time we'd got back into the dressing room, I went up, I was on the coaching staff as well as playing. Arthur said, "I've got one coming in tomorrow, good player." I said, "Who's that?" He said, "Ali Benarbia." And he walked through the door, and he's almost a cult hero.
He is. Yeah. What a player. Well, the first couple of days in training, it was just saying about levels and standards going up. When Ali came in, it just went to a completely different
I remember it was him and Berkovic as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember my dad saying, he said, "No, I've not seen two players like that in a City shirt."
Kevin knew what he was doing, because he brings in Benarbia, but Berkovic was already here.
Yeah.
You know, Hucks and everything else, and he sold me, so he obviously knew what he was doing.
We didn't talk long for that, you know what I mean?
Did you feel though, obviously, because Stuart, you know, having the career that you'd had, you said there, you're right at the back end of it, of course, you know, playing for England, doing what you did at previous clubs. As a player, do you feel coming in, you go, actually, okay, I know that I'm here to try and actually impart what I've learned in my career so far, and also help Kevin making that step up? Were you aware of that?
Well, I knew the club wanted to get back in the Premier League.
Yeah.
So straight away you're walking through the door of a football club, a massive football club by the way, this club, that you know the bare minimum is getting promoted. And probably on top of that, with Kevin's drive, the bare minimum was to win the league. Yeah. End of. For me, as a 39-year-old, and getting the opportunity to carry on playing was fantastic. I was fortunate enough that 2 years previous to that, I'd played 88 matches, so I was very sharp and very fit. But the opportunity to come through the door and work with Kevin, I'd worked with him with England, but not at club level, and it was fantastic. And you know, in the period I was here, the 6 years, they moved into this stadium, you know, and the club got took over by big owners, and off they went from there.
We were just talking actually before, because he was bringing my next question. Was managing and coaching something you always knew you wanted to do, or did that kind of happen organically?
I think when I was in my 20s, I weren't sure about managing and coaching. As soon as I got in my 30s, I thought, yes, it's something I want to do. To get the opportunity to come here, Kevin said to me, as well as playing, he said, come on the coaching staff. I used to go and sit with the CEO in the afternoons and go through the financial books of the club to understand that side of the football club as well. I used to go into the academy at Moss Side as well when I ended up being a coach here when I finished playing. So it gave me a brilliant education, and I used to go into board meetings with Kevin, and Kevin used to say, come in with me and see how board meetings work, because the only time you ever get in a board meeting is either you're on the board or you're the manager. You never get to go in as a coach.
Yeah.
And it was a brilliant education for me. I've got a wonderful story about I'll tell you off air. Brilliant.
How good is that though for you, like for Kevin Keegan to do that? Because he's like, I know where you want to go, and I want you to give you that chance to experience, right?
He said to me, I said to him at the end of my first season as a player, I'm packing in, he said, stay at this football club and apply for jobs. He said, stay here, you're better off, more chance. And he was quite open for me to go out. I remember going to Ipswich and having an interview for the job there, and went for varying jobs whilst I was still working for City. And it was brilliant experience for me to be, and to watch someone like him and Arthur Cox actually work firsthand, how they conduct transfer negotiations, all of those type of things. How he dealt with the board of directors was incredible. Yeah. You know, all of those type of things that you've got to work out for yourself unless you've got a great schoolmaster and role model like that.
Who's bringing you through.
Yeah.
I have to ask this because, I mean, David loves talking about, and we've heard it from his side, but David James coming on up front, Stuart. I mean, it's iconic. I mean, Addy, was he bagging goals in training? Because I don't believe him when he says he was.
No, he's an absolute liar. Never played outfield in his life.
I knew it.
It was an absolute masterstroke from me that failed miserably, as a lot of my managerial decisions did. I was there on a Friday night, and I thought, it's the last game of the season. We had Middlesbrough at home. They are one place above us in the European places. We were 8th. We needed to beat them. A draw was good enough for them, or a win. And on the Friday night, I thought, what can I do to get this place to come to the party on Saturday if it's a draw and we're meandering along? You know, what can I do? And I come up with the idea of I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put David James up front and we're going route one. And I thought the crowd would go, wow, what's going on? And everyone will come to the party and euphoria would start. So I thought it was brilliant. So I come in the following morning and I said to Les Chapman, get me a number 1 outfield shirt with James ready for it. And he said, OK. I said, but shush, keep it quiet.
Yeah.
So that was put to bed. I said to my assistant, Steve Wigley, said, Wiggs, I've got a great idea, and told him the plan. He looked at me and went, you've had some stupid ideas, but this is up there. I don't want anything to do with it. Right? So we go a goal down to Hasselbank's hit a free kick on 35 minutes. We're a goal down. We get an equaliser. The game's meandering along. I'm looking at Wiggs on the bench on about 70 minutes. I said, what do you think? And he's blank. Didn't want anything to do with it whatsoever. That's a good assistant for you, you know? So on 75 minutes, I'm saying, what do you think? And still we won't have anything to do with it. I said, well, what we got to lose? So I say to Nicky Weaver, get warmed up, Nick, you're going on. Nick's looking at me as though, what's going on? David James looks at me and sees Nicky Weaver getting warmed up, and David wants to rip my head off for taking him off. So he comes over, he thinks he's being substituted and taken off. We don't do that. Nicky Weaver goes in goal, and Claudio Reyna come off. I say to David James, go and play up front. J-Mo, that's the first he ever heard of it on about 75 minutes. So he says, all right. He goes and plays up front, but he plays as a number 10. He's like Bambi on ice. You know when you're 6'4" and can jump out the clouds?
He kept coming short, didn't he?
He kept coming
But you
short.
want to come and show how good you can play.
I mean, if you go Ekiov and Southgate with the 2 centre halves, they're looking and going, what is going on here? He's hacking people down, he's tripping over. He had a disastrous time. All of a sudden, we get a penalty on 82 minutes. The ball's on the penalty spot at this end of the pitch. Schwartz is in goal. Fowler's got the ball on the penalty spot. It's 1-1. I look at my assistant Wiggs and went, the new Mourinho, eh? And we missed the penalty. I get in my car going home, turn the radio on. We've got an idiot as a manager. He put David James up front. Oh dear. But a good story.
That is an amazing, honestly, that is an amazing
So
story.
Arteta's talking about a subbing goalkeeper. We got the original.
I was just thinking.
The playmakers, these goalies, not so much J-Mo, but most of them.
Learn from the
not
best.
new.
It's not new.
Brilliant, Stu. But honestly, on behalf of City fans as well, honestly, I remember when you came to club, it was such a big moment for the fans, and it was brilliant to see you in a City shirt on the pitch and on the touchline as well.
I was
So
lucky to be here. Really lucky to be here.
Back to City then. Let's take a look at the defence position. You know well, Stuart, and we asked you, Rob, actually, you know, how would you fare? But I wanted to begin with Vardiol, new signing. What have you made of him so far?
He's excellent. I watched him in the World Cup especially, and even though everybody remembers that goal, Messi set up where he dribbled in and out of him, but the whole World Cup he was brilliant, and I thought, okay, this guy is a player, but since he's coming here, I think, you know, Pep has given him those little diamond bits of knowledge that I think takes him to another level, and he's still adjusting. He's still early, you know. He's still he's a young man. I mean, we're saying he doesn't look 21. He looks older than that, but he is 21. So he's a young man, and he's learning. And this is a school. When you come to play for City under Pep, you come into school. You come to learn about football for real. And I think that's what's happening right now. So I think he's gonna be brilliant. I think he's gonna be one of the best, but. I think it's going to take a little bit of time, but I think he's excellent. He's got all the attributes, his qualities, and I think he's just fitting in perfectly with Diaz and Akanji and Walker as well. It's going to be very interesting to see how they approach it, because I've seen him at times just kind of step into midfield a little bit. So I wonder if Pep sees him as one that can step into midfield and go and, you know, maybe, you know, put a couple of crosses in and break a few lines from midfield. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays.
How that grows, absolutely. On one player I wanted to mention, we talk about the defence, we don't always go to him, but I think of some of them stops in West Ham as well at 1-1. Ederson, Paul. From, I don't know, there was a turning point, I think 5 games to go, well, 5 to 10, end of last season to now. It just seems his game's gone up to another level. He's shot stopping and big saves in key moments.
Yeah, it used to drive me mad, especially last season, Kel, because there was a lot of fans that were questioning Ederson, and I'm like, are you mad?
Really?
Yeah. You know, the middle of last season, it was
really
like, shall we put Ortega in, give Ederson a rest? He's fundamental, first and foremost, to how Man City want to play and how Pep wants to play. You know, how good he is in the ball. But the best goalkeepers and the best teams historically, you go back to Schmeichel, you go back to Petr Cech, they make big saves at big times in the big games, and they done that last. Bayern Munich was a prime example in the quarter-final here. You know, it was 0-0 just before half-time, then just after half-time, Leroy Sané goes through and he made 2 unbelievable saves, and then you go on and win 3-0. You know, the same here, but even with battered Real Madrid 4, they had a couple of chances early doors at Ederson, you know, so as much as he's not facing that many shots on target, he makes big saves at big times in the game, and he's a world-class goalkeeper.
Stuart?
I've been privy to sort of been part of teams that have faced Manchester City both at home and away with West Ham, and when you put a team up against Man City, you know that you're going to be starved of the ball. And some of the only times you can really get a foothold in the game is when City get a goal kick and you do a full court press, or there's a throw-in. When City get the ball, there's a fear factor about going on a full court press because of what the goalie can do. He can tonk it 90 yards to feet.
Pinpoint.
Incredible. And let alone what he does with it goalkeeping wise, it's what he does with his feet that scares the life out of opposition as well. And I see the difference when you play a Man City team without him in it. There's a vast difference, and there's less fear factor about pressing Manchester City.
Yeah, that's so true. And you talk about, you know, how key Rodri is, but actually Ederson's just as key because he gives us that. Yeah, it's brilliant.
I was going to say, for me, Ederson, I've never seen a goalkeeper that good with his feet. And I think, apart from De Bruyne, he's probably the second best passer in the whole City squad, because the quality of his passes, it's not one of those that he bounces it into people. He's breaking lines, and I think that's why he's so instrumental, and Pep had to have him.
Yes.
Because as a goalkeeper, you actually spend more of the time with the ball with your feet than your hands.
Yes.
So this is key. So if you spend the ball is at your feet more than in your hands, apart from when you're making a save. You might make 5 or 6 saves, but you probably touch the ball with your feet about 50 times.
Yeah.
So there's a difference. So he said, well, you know, those 5 or 6 times that you might make a save, make sure you do that. But the other time, I also want you to be a player.
Yes.
You're an outfield player when those 50, 60 times that you touch the ball. So I think that's so key. He's the best I've ever seen at threading passes and the quality of passes from the back.
Fair to say as well, Paul, again, though, I mean, there's a lot I think that we've all learnt from Pep, but again, another thing that he's kind of brought to the Premier League and almost reinvented what we expect of a goalkeeper now.
He has, but look, the lads have just said it all. With the ball at his feet, he's one of the best in the Premier League. You know, not just as a goalkeeper, but and talk about him breaking lines, but Stuart's bang on. He doesn't think twice about hitting the ball 90 yards over the top. Seen it a couple of times here last season. I think Haaland scored against Palace. You know, Palace have tried to press a little bit, and he's just knocked it 90 yards straight into Haaland's feet, and he goes in. He's got 3 or 4 assists in the last couple of seasons.
And he means it, that's the
of course
thing. He actually means it. I mean,
and it's something
you ask any player, I mean, this guy could hit it, you know, over 50, 60 yards diagonal, but he actually drills it like 60, 70 yards, and he means it. It's unbelievable.
Robert, they work on that as well. Remember when Arsenal came here last season, they went on full press.
Yeah.
And I've never seen a Manchester City team under Pep go as long as much as they did.
I was going to make that point. I was at the game.
Mixing it up, isn't it?
Arsenal wanted to do a full court press. They'd done it in the FA Cup, and they thought we're going to do the same in the league, as you say. And he just popped the ball into Haaland, and Haaland dropped it back to De Bruyne, and that was the start of the attack. You know what I mean? So we'll play through, but we'll play beyond as well. Great point.
And Haaland as well has added to that dimension as well, hasn't he, a little bit? Brilliant stuff. Right, we asked for your questions, and we can ask a couple of them now. So they're going to come up on the bottom of the screen here. So let's see this first one. It came in from Thapello, who says, this one's for you, Stuart. Which Man City number 8 would you sell, start or bench? Great question. Between Kovacic, Gundogan and Nasri. So you can start one, bench one, and you'd have to sell another. Kovacic, Gundogan and Nasri. Good question.
I'd probably move Nasri out. I think the other 2 are better professionals. No offence, Mr. Nasri. You're out of here. You've gone. I'll tell you what, I've been wowed by Gundogan last year. I think when Manchester City needed a lift in those final 2 or 3 months, Gundogan and Silva were immense. They were the 2 players I would pick out that actually picked the team up and carried the team when they needed a lift. Gundogan's my start.
Lovely stuff. Thanks, that's a great question, Thapello. Okay, next one. We should actually start having a few more of them hypotheticals. Frank, we'll put this one to you. Where is Alvarez's best position?
Alvarez's best position is probably where Haaland is. But the way City play, he can actually do both. He can actually be a number 10 and he can be a forward player. And now what I love is, and I think he's probably finding this, because before getting to Man City at River Plate, I remember him, he was definitely an out-and-out striker. But I think he's evolved his game now to be able to understand, because it took me, when I was playing, it took me a little while to understand that you don't just stand there and get the goals. Sometimes you have to arrive late. It's your movement and the timing of your movement, and I think he's getting that. He understands where, if I arrive late, I still get there, but I arrive where I can't be picked up.
Yes.
And that's the thing. And I think right now he's playing as good as can be in that kind of number 10 position, because he can be dropping off, but also be in the box at the same time.
I think his goal the other night, there was a prime example of it. And he's gone into that 10 role and he's done ever so well this season. But a lot of 10s won't make that run. After he's got it, he's knocked it into Haaland, and then he's broke his neck to get in the box. So that's the striker instinct that's in him as well. You know, his hold-up play is good, his work rate's fantastic. Technically, he's top level, but he's still got that instinct. He wants to get in the box regardless of where he's been playing wide, which we've seen him as a number 9 or as a number 10. He's
the
been
great thing
unbelievable.
His quality is, we've seen him hit a couple of shots from outside the edge of the box, or where it's on the left side or the right side. He can do that. He can hit shots from 20, 25 yards, and he can finish from there as well. I think he's just got so much quality.
Do you think he'll evolve into a more deep-line midfield player the older he gets? I wonder, because he was that centre forward, now he's shown he can play slightly deeper. Will he evolve into a sort of Frank Lampard-esque type player? He's got the work rate you mentioned earlier. He's happy to work back for the team.
Yeah, I think he will. I think he will, especially when he starts to understand that he doesn't have to do, the run here, run here. His qualities will always be about what he does with the ball. Yeah. So I think that's going to dictate a lot.
I think he knows as well. Look, he came here as a number 9. If he wants to be a number 9, he's not going to start. Yeah. And that's no disrespect to him. You've got a number 9 up there who just scored 52 goals last season. So he's not going to go in there. So he's probably thinking to himself, I've got this opportunity as a 10. I've got Pep and his staff who are constantly coaching me. I've got to make this work now. Yeah. Because if I want to be a 9, I'm not going to play. And that's no disrespect to him. But he needs to find a different weapons that he's got there to start on this team, and he's done that.
And it'll only then add to his game as well,
Absolutely,
wherever he's playing on the pitch. Rob, we have to take a few minutes to talk about your career. I mean, 43 goals for Nottingham Forest. Your time there, how was that for you, and any fond standout memories?
Brilliant, because Forest is a very unique club. It's a very special club. It's got, everybody knows about the history, but I think the fan base, we're talking about Forest's fan base it's special because they have such a long memory and they support you, and it's very rare that they're not behind the team. I think right now they're as excited as they can be just to be in the Premier League. But I think for me it was special because at the time when I signed, it was 2008, and they just got promoted from League One. And Colin Calderwood was the manager at the time, and he said, listen, we've got a young group, we've just got promoted, but really it's about building. It's about building to, how far can we get? How far can this team get? But I remember him saying I want a goal scorer. I want somebody to come in, and we're struggling in that forward position. So I want you to be that, and also as well try and help the young players as much as possible. And that next season we struggled a little bit, but it was about adapting. And that 2009 season, the next season, is probably the standout. You talk about standouts. We came here and beat City 3-0 in the FA Cup, and that was at the time where they signed Robinho, and Vincent Kompany was playing, Mika Richards, Zabaleta, and all of these guys are playing, and that was probably the standout. But it took us a year or so just to get moving to the position we were in. and it was just so good. You know, we were on fire at the time. We just had a game of our lives, really. And coming here was like, okay, this is one of the best teams in the country. What can we do?
Yes.
And we came here and won 3-0, and it was like, whoa, okay, this is
what we can do.
Yeah, this is the level that we can do and can be. And unfortunately, we were just this close to being in the Premier League because 2 seasons in a row we lost by minimal goals that would have taken us to the Premier League. For the next 2 seasons, we were involved so much in the playoffs. So really good times. I had great times at Forest, and even to this day, that the amount of invites I get from Brazil, from New York, from all the fans is unbelievable, worldwide. I mean, I was coaching out in the US a few years ago, and you see Nottingham Forest shirts because they came to watch because I played for the club.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, and that's, I think, the magic of Nottingham Forest.
And that's it, and it stays with you then. It kind of goes past your time of playing and with you kind of beyond that. 43 goals, do you have a favourite? Is there any favourite goals?
It's like picking your favourite kid. For me anyway, because that's for me, it's always been my craft. Scoring goals, making an impact on the goal scoring sheet was always about, it's a craft. I think, when I look at goals, I mean, the one obviously here, scoring here was special because I think it's where you score the goals. But I think I got a hat trick against Leicester, and Leicester and Forest is a big rivalry there, big derby there, and I got a hat trick against Leicester, and I think all 3 of those were special for different reasons. But probably the one that everybody talks to me about is scoring away at Derby, because Derby and Forest hate each other.
Yeah.
That's the big game of the season, and I scored the winner at Derby, and that's the one where I think there's about 5,000 fans there watching, and I started conducting the crowd for about 5 minutes, got a yellow and continued. So that's the one everybody still kind of talks to me about, because it was just one of those that I don't care where we are, we're going to celebrate. But I had lots of good moments, and I think what was good about Forest, not just the goals, I think it was because we were involved in trying to get to the Premier League at the time. 2 times in the playoff semi-finals. I think those were big seasons for us, because we should have actually gone up automatically, and we felt disappointed that we should have gone up automatically both seasons. And I think sometimes those things, and now you can look back and think, we went from relegation and just getting promoted from League One to competing to go to the Premier League. So those things, sometimes the improvement is the good moments as well.
That's it. Everything happens for a reason. Doesn't it, in a way? Brilliant. I mean, this has absolutely flown by. It's not long till we hand over to Alistair Mann, who's got your commentary exclusively on the official Manchester City app. Paul, we will touch on our attack. I mean, Foden, so great to see him now starting to influence games. And, there's been a bit of chat, and I'm not one having it, but I mean, it feels like Haaland could have had a few hat-tricks already, but there's no saying that he probably could get one today.
But it wouldn't surprise you, would it? Look, people, the last sort of 3 games, I think they've been focusing on the amount of chances that we have been missing, which there has been a lot, and for Erling and the standards that he's got and his goal scoring rate, I know he's disappointed in himself in doing it, but we've been missing all these chances, but we've just put 5 past Fulham. We've just went to West Ham and scored 3 last week, and we scored 3 again midweek, so we've just scored 11 goals in 3 games. And considering the amount of chances we're missing, it's just quite scary for everybody else. Erling's got 7 goals in 5 games, I think, in the Premier League already. So as much as we are missing chances, I don't see it being a major problem. And then, the big man, if he keeps getting the chances he's getting, he's still going to score 3 and 4 and go on to break loads of records, especially in and around him as well. Phil's got a number of assists already this season. Jeremy Doku's been a revelation, and he's always going to create and score goals the way he plays. Then you've got Alvarez in there, and Nunes. Not too bad, is it?
It's not too bad at all. Right, gents, the final thing we do on the show, which I know is going to be slightly more tricky for you guys, is a prediction. So, Paul, I'll begin with you. We'll let our guests have a little second to think. What do you see this playing out today?
I just think with this, the way the team's playing at the minute, unbeaten in the Premier League, winning every game, I can't see anything but a Man City win, but a comfortable one. So I'm going to go 5-0.
You went there. Go on, Paul.
He's always sitting on the fence, Dickie. That's the problem with it.
All in.
Right. I was scared. I thought the gaffer would do 2-foot me there.
That'll happen off camera. Stu, what about for yourself?
I think Forest would have learnt a lot from last year. I think they've shown already this season they're going to be a little bit tighter to score against. I think City will win. I think they'll win 2-0, but I think Forest certainly won't be as open as they were last year for the 6-0.
And for yourself, Rob?
Do you know what? I would love for Forest to do well, but I watch City every week, and I just think they're unbelievable. They're the best team in the world, and I don't think a game like this, they're going to look at it and not come out firing. I saw the Red Star Belgrade game. They miss loads of chances, but they sometimes have one of those in every 10 games. So you better watch out if you're the next opponent. And I feel sorry for Forest today, but I think it's got to be probably 4-1 to City.
Okay, 4-1, lovely. Gents, honestly, I've loved this flowing by. Thanks for the insight, thanks for the stories, and do not worry at home. Stuart Pearce, Rob Earnshaw and Paul Dickov, we're going to be back at half-time, then at full-time. And remember, if you want your commentary, that's with Alistair Mann and Shaun Goater on the Manchester City app. Nottingham Forest are our guests today at the Etihad Stadium. The boys are in the tunnel ready to go. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you at half-time. The only final thing for me to say, you know the drill, is come on City.
Thank you, Kel. Well, it's been the perfect start for City so far. Maximum points, 14 goals scored, just 3 conceded. Throw in an opening victory in the defence of their Champions League trophy, and a UEFA Super Cup already bagged for the trophy cabinet. And the 23-24 campaign has simply picked up